Lost in Time by Marcus Factor. The curtain rises on an elaborate museum exhibit featuring a gigantic T-Rex skeleton. Two boys gaze up at it with awe. This is a drama or play that includes Jamal and James. I'm going to read through without saying their names, and you just follow along with your copy in Google Classroom. Look at the enormous size of that thing's teeth. That thing is the tyrant king of the dinosaur world, the ferocious and infamous Tyrannosaurus Rex. Cool. Mr. Flynn will have a field day with this guy. As they glance around, the boys discover they're alone. We've lost our class. They must have kept going. Well, we'll just have to find the mummies, right? Yeah, but we have a ton of territory to cover. The boys begin walking, and as they pass the T-Rex, a tremendous roar booms out, and they jump back terrified. Is it just me, or did that skeleton just make noise? Breathing heavily. Yes, sound effects, I suppose. We have to find our class. We're 4 hours from home. Feels like we're in the jungle, 1,000,000,000 years ago. A vast variety of dinosaur sounds resonate as the boys continue trekking through their museum. Suddenly, a distressed teacher hurriedly runs onto the stage. James, Jamal, I've been searching everywhere. Where were you? Extremely distracted. This is a remarkable new exhibit. We've just enough time to get to class and take in the dinosaur display before lunch. Answer the questions on the next page. What is the conflict in the play? Which episode from the plot serves as the resolution? And explain another way that the author could have resolved the conflict in the play. Describe whether or not it would be good resolution based on the play's plot events. Use at least 2 specific examples to support your response. Okay, the next passage that you'll read is from Black Beauty. And be sure that you're putting your answers in the Google form that I submitted for Ready Lesson 6. All right, from Black Beauty by Anne Sewell. One day late in the autumn, my master had a long journey to go on business. I was put into the dog cart, and John went with his master. There had been a great deal of rain, and now the wind was very high and blew the dry leaves across the road in a shower. We went along merrily until we came to the toll bar and the low wooden bridge. The river banks were rather high, and the bridge, instead of rising, went across just level, so that in the middle, if the river was full, the water would be nearly up to the woodwork and planks. But as there were good substantial rails on each side, people did not mind it. The man at the gate said the river was rising fast, and he feared it would be a bad night. Many of the meadows were under water, and in one low part of the road the water was halfway up to my knees. The bottom was good, and master drove gently, so it was no matter. When we got to the town, of course, I had a good bait, but as the master's business engaged him a long time, we didn't start for home until rather late in the afternoon. The wind was then much higher, and I heard the master say to John that he had never been out in such a storm. And so I thought, as we went along the skirts of a wood, where the great branches were swaying about like twigs and the rushing sound was terrible. I wish we were well out of this wood, said my master. Yes, sir, said John. It would be rather awkward if one of these branches came down upon us. The words were scarcely out of his mouth when there was a groan and a crack and a splitting sound, and tearing, crashing down among the other trees came an oak, torn up by the roots, and it fell right across the road just before us. That was a very near touch, said my master. What's to be done now? Well, sir, we can't drive over that tree, nor yet get around it. There'll be nothing for it but to go back to the 4 crossways, and that'll be a good 6 miles before we get round to the wooden bridge again. So back we went and round by the crossroads, but by the time we got to the bridge, it was very nearly dark. We could just see that the water was over the middle of it. But as that happened sometimes, when the floods were out, master did not stop. We were going along at a good pace, but the moment my feet touched the first part of the bridge, I felt sure there was something wrong. I dare not go forward, and I made a dead stop. Go on, Beauty, said my master, and he gave me a touch with the whip. But I dare not, sir. He gave me a sharp cut. I jumped, but I dare not go forward. There's something wrong, sir, said John, and he sprang out of the dog cart, and he came to my head and looked all about me. He tried to lead me forward. Come on, Beauty, what's the matter? Of course I couldn't tell him, but I knew very well that that bridge was not safe. Just then the man at the toll gate on the other side ran out of the house, tossing a torch about like one mad. What's the matter? Shouted my master. The bridge is broken in the middle, and part of it is carried away. If you come on, you'll be into the river. Thank God, said my master. You beauty, said John. And he took the bridle and gently turned me round to the right-hand road by the riverside. The sun had set some time. The wind seemed to have lulled off after that furious blast which tore up the tree. It grew darker and darker, stiller and stiller. I trotted quietly along, the wheels hardly making a sound on the soft road. We saw a light at the hall door and at the upper windows, and as we came up, Mistress ran out, saying, Are you really safe, my dear? Oh, I have been so anxious, fancying all sorts of things. Have you had no accident? No, my dear, but if your Black Beauty had not been wiser than we were, we should all have been carried down the river at the wooden bridge. I heard no more as they went into the house, and John took me to the stable. Oh, what a good supper he gave me that night. A good bran mash and some crushed beans with my oats and such a thick bed of straw. And I was glad of it, for I was tired. Answer the following questions. Read this sentence from paragraph 3. The wind was then much higher, and I heard the master say to John that he had never been out in such a storm. And so I thought, as we went along the skirts of a wood, where the great branches were swaying about like twigs and the rushing sound was terrible. Which part of the story's plot structure does this sentence illustrate? The exposition, which is the beginning, the climax, which is the highest point in the story, rising action, or falling action. Which of these sentences shows how the plot is also resolved? We were going along at a good pace, but the moment my feet touched the first part of the bridge, I felt sure there was something wrong. Of course, I could not tell him, but I knew very well that the bridge was not safe. The bridge is broken in the middle, and the part of it's carried away. If you come on, you'll be in the river. No, my dear, but if your Black Beauty had not been wiser than we were, we should all have been carried down the river at the wooden bridge. Which of these shows resolution, that the problem is solved, it's over? What is the main conflict in the story? The main problem. The storm causes a large branch to fall and nearly hit Black Beauty and the men. The men want Black Beauty to cross the bridge, but he knows it is out. The bridge breaks and is washed away by the rising river, or the master must go to town for business and during a terrible storm. So what's the main thing that happened in the story? The whole story revolved around. Explain how Black Beauty's decision not to cross the bridge changes the story. Use at least 2 details from the story in your answer. And be sure that you're using these 2 details, because many of us got only 10 out of the 20 points that your open-ended questions are worth because you didn't include details from the story. All right, go do your work. If you want to take notes and write this on notebook paper and then transfer it to your form, that's a good idea, because once you start entering into your form, it will not save. And be sure that you submit that in Google Classroom when you finish.